settled into the game right away and got off to a great start, and really had good contributions from a lot of different people. It's been kind of that way with both the exhibition and the scrimmage. I think it's been a couple guys have been up and down at times, but for the most part, I think we've had really good spirit and energy. I think we've defended well, and we're looking forward to getting started. I think the guys are ready to play other people as opposed to practicing every day, and we're going to play a Stetson team that has some experience. They've got a lot of senior and older players, so I don't think they'll be in awe of playing a high major team, and they're a little bit like us in that they're very balanced, have a lot of different guys that have contributed, and just excited to get started.
Have you been able to get a kind of feel for some of the new guys here in the first month of practice and how they've worked in with the
Yeah, a little bit. I think Ibrahim has done well. He and Jerron kind of at the 4 spot are both guys I think will probably play together most of the time at that position. He's been able to make some perimeter jump shots for us. His length at times has helped. He's got to continue to rebound better. And Jerron is kind of the same way. Jerron is a great energy guy, a guy who can make a shot, but a guy who continues to kind of get comfortable. I think he at times he still looks a little half step slow in my mind in conversion and transition. Maybe doesn't have full speed that I remember him having, but still plays with great energy and purpose. And those two guys are doing well. I think Austin Ajukwa has played very well so far and has made some shots, and is a guy who you kind of look at going into the season, maybe is he a guy who you would think about redshirting, but he's really played well enough that I don't know that we want to do that. There's a lot of players at those positions. It's going to be very competitive, but he shot the ball really well in the exhibition, and has played with pretty good poise for a young player so far. Still has a ways to go defensively to get better, and needs to get stronger, obviously, but I'm excited about his future here. And then City, just very physical, rebounds the ball pretty well for his size, and is aggressive, goes after every ball. Still needs polish offensively especially, and his development will probably take a little bit longer, like most post players. It just takes a little longer to understand all the things that go into playing that position. There's a little more technique involved in certain things, and understanding the game, but brings a physicality that has helped us at the center position.
Is there a thought about maybe redshirting?
There is, but I doubt it, just because any injury at all in the front court, and that's a problem. We just don't have enough pure size. And I think the other thing is, I think his physical nature at times, there are going to be some games maybe later in the season where you're just going to need a physical body out there to put weight on people and to rebound in position. And if we have foul trouble, or if we have any kind of depth issues in the post, that's really Jumbo and Blossom game really aren't big enough to do much of that. And so now you're left with Josh and Landry, and Josh a little smaller at times, so it could go either way there. And but I don't think so. I think we're going to let him roll. So let's see how he does.
How's Devin Coleman looked this preseason? I mean, a couple of years ago, the end of the year, he looked like the most consistent freshman that you had up.
You know what? He's done well. He's still finding his way a little bit on some things, but he plays with good offensive confidence. Has a real swagger to offensive basketball, and scoring off screens and shooting the ball in. He's got to improve a little bit defensively in some areas, but he's a guy that comes in looking to shoot. We want him to shoot, and we just have so many guys in those positions that it's just going to be a battle. And his advantage is his ability to shoot the ball.
That was the first time since year one for you. You had more guys back, I guess, than newcomers, and with the added a little earlier start time, you've probably been able to be a little bit more advanced, I guess.
Yeah, we're doing okay in terms of implementing things. It would have been nice. We haven't been able to do as much from what we took from Italy, just because it was our numbers weren't very good there, and we didn't have much size, so we had to play a little bit different way. But we do have good depth. We do have some guys that have been experienced in the backcourt and at least played a year, and so I think those guys are more comfortable maybe than our post guys initially. But I do think the depth has helped us, and I think you've seen it in the exhibition game, and you'll see it in a lot of games here early, especially.
Does this become a team that you'll feel comfortable with throwing a little half-court trap, really getting as creative defensively as maybe you've been able to do?
I think, I do think we'll do some different things. I think we possibly could zone more this year. I think a lot of coaches are concerned with the way the game's going to be called, renewed emphasis on hand checking, and there's a real concern with the amount of fouls that are going to be called, especially early. And so we've worked on some zone and done some different things that way just to have something to prepare. I do think there are times when we could extend the floor a little more than we did last year for certain. Saw a little bit of that in our exhibition game, but we need to use our depth. We've got to try to wear a few teams down with depth, and I think that's something that will help us in that area.
With the strength and experience in the team, obviously in the backcourt with the guys you have back and
Right.
and Book and Jennings, is it a complete overhaul this year from what you were doing last year, or is it more just kind of transitioning in a few areas?
You know what? It's not a complete overhaul, but there are some differences. We're trying to play a little faster. We're trying to do a few more things that maybe we did our first or second year in terms of running a little bit more motion, a few other things, as opposed to maybe just methodically playing the game to use our bigs in possessions, and with a little lack of depth last year and lack of experience in the backcourt, it was really felt a little hamstrung at times. I think this year we feel like we can do a few more things. We can push the ball a little bit more, especially offensively. Try to do some different things on both ends of the court to give us a better chance.
Is it kind of getting more back into the element of what you like to do?
It is. Yeah, I think I would like to play a little faster and push it and have different types of ways to play and not just get locked into one. And so I do think that's going to work to our benefit this year, yes.
Either due to the new officiating emphasis on calling a tighter game, or the fact that folks are going to see your team, you're probably going to see every zone in the world thrown at you.
Yeah, we'll see some more zone too, I anticipate. I think, I think a lot of coaches are going to experiment with it and see how it goes, and especially maybe in the non-conference to see whether they want to use it a little bit more during league play. Got zoned a few times last year, but not a lot. We have worked against a bunch of different zones so far, and certainly anticipate seeing some early in the season.
And obviously that's just a matter, if guys are hitting shots,
It helps. Certainly shot making is the fear that all of us have when you play zone, is that you're going to give up some threes and some perimeter shots. And, I feel better about our shooting this year than last, and certainly feel like we have more guys on the floor that are capable of consistently making shots. And so hopefully we see that if we do face some zone.
How have you seen Lander develop? Obviously, he's a guy you're going to be counting on a lot more this year than you were last year at this time.
Really well defensively. I think Landry's length and his smarts. I think he's a very smart player defensively. I think he's really coming into his own on that end of the court. Certainly, I think offensively he's still a little bit of a work in progress, and as much of anything is some confidence. I think his moves are much better. He still has to get a little lower, and his lower leg strength needs to be better, and that'll come with a little more age. He needs another 10 pounds of muscle and strength in his legs to hold people off like Booker could. He can't really do that quite as well yet. But his moves and touch around the basket are better considerably. He can make a little 12, 15-foot shot at the elbow pretty well, and he runs the court great. He runs like Devin. He can get down the floor and outrun people every once in a while. He's a pretty good offensive rebounder, so I feel like he's making really good progress.
The emphasis on the hand checking, how does that alter what you're able to do with the jammer?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a concern with how much we're going to be able to pressure. You worry about putting teams in the bonus at the 13-minute mark, 14-minute mark of a half, and then watching a game kind of run out of your hands that way. We had that happen once or twice last year, and I think in the exhibition and in the scrimmage we've done a good job. We've really coached our guys to keep their hands off and play with their feet, and there are some occasional instances I think where it's almost natural for guys to put hands on when somebody drives, and so there's going to be some fouling, but we've really tried to coach it. But it's a little bit it's a little harder to be as aggressive as you want to be and to do some things, and that's a little bit of a concern. I was hoping to be a little more aggressive at times, but I'm a little concerned with that.
What was the word from the people at the top that wanted to, I guess, limit the amount of hand checking? And
Just everybody's a little upset with the lack of scoring here recently. Scoring's gone down the last couple of years. I think there's, one of the thoughts is that the NBA several years ago kind of really got away from all that. In the old days in the NBA, you could put arm bars on people and put your hand on a guy as long as one hand. And the NBA has gotten away from that, especially out on the floor, and it's really helped with movement. And so I think it's something it's not really a new point, but it's something that they're seriously going to call. And they talk about calling it more. And, the concern for everybody is now if you're playing a TV game and all of a sudden there's a million fouls, the game's going to last 2.5 hours, 3 hours, TV's going to be upset. But so we're all kind of anxious to see how, yeah, exactly. Deadlines. But you guys are always upset. So, I mean, what's new about that? By the way, that was not me that put you guys up in your new seating area. So, although I can't tell you that I disagree with it. But now you guys at least have an excuse for when you write something bad. Well, I really couldn't see it, But anyway, so it's just trying to get more scoring is really all they're trying to do, is just get a little bit more movement in the game, a little bit more scoring. I think it can be very good. I think it can be good for the game. I've talked in other issues about other times about, what we really need is guys to work on their games more, develop better skill level and be coached better at the younger ages so our skills are better. But it'll be a little bit troubling, I think, if we have games that do last 2.5 hours and everybody ends up watching free throws. I think that'll be, something that people won't be happy about either. Scoring will go up probably a little bit, but, anyway, that's for another day.
Have you already seen the benefits of that trip to Italy? Do you feel like you've seen maybe what that?
I think our guys, as much as anything, I think it's just how close our guys are. And I knew that our guys were going to be closer naturally, and I've talked about this, just being closer in age, and kind of looking around and realizing that these guys are the guys that are like the leaders, and it kind of has to emerge from within. And, I think but the Italy trip expedited that process even more. And I think you see a group of guys that are really rooting for each other, very competitive with one another in practice. And that's an issue you got to watch throughout the course of the season. It's not easy because at some point here somebody's going to start losing minutes. And, then you still got to be cheering for your team and be supportive. But our guys have been very positive. They've worked really hard. And so I do think we do see the benefits of all that. And I think we came back with some good confidence from the trip, too, offensively. I think we made some baskets. Some guys felt good about the way they played. So that's maybe carried over a little bit as well.
I remember at the wrap-up last year you said, the guys in the locker room have to care as much about losing as you do.
Right.
I guess, do you feel like you've exercised that, or is that just something that maybe plays out over the course of the season?
I think it plays out longer. I don't think you just solve that. That's not something that is solved quickly. And we'll talk about that more as the games get real. But I do think, the concern for me with a young team with no seniors is there's always next year. There's always more time. And that's what you deal with when you deal with young players and young people, is there's never a sense of urgency because there's always more time. And they almost, sometimes even seniors don't get that until they start at some point at the end of their senior year. They wake up and realize, oh my goodness, I only have 5 or 6 games left. And then all of a sudden there's like, Coach, I know what you're talking about now. But that's a concern for us long term, is being able to understand the urgency that you need to play this game and to play it well, and as a team to really kind of rally to that. So it'll be something we'll be talking about.
Is there more with the young team? I realize that all these games are important, but is there more emphasis put on, just sort of finding their way in these non-conference games?
Oh, I think it can help build confidence, or it's going to be negative. I mean, that's just the way it is. I don't know that it's any different with a young team versus an older team. I think if you had a really older team that was really good, coming back and won 25 games, then I think you could worry about complacency. I don't think it's that at all for us. I mean, for us, it's more of trying to build confidence. I think our guys haven't played enough and played well enough consistently in games to feel like they got it all figured out, and to be out there with the kind of swagger I think you really kind of need to be a really good player. And so for us, it's kind of building a confidence in what we're doing in our team, in individual games, guys individually, not just a team, but individually really believing that you're a good player and seeing good things happen and knowing that all your hard work is paying off. And so I think that's more of what you're looking for with young players and young teams.
On the hand check thing, did they write the rule at all that it's basically going to enforce it? Wasn't-
Mostly just mostly enforce. We've had the couple years ago, we had the two-hand absolute, where anytime you touched them with two hands, automatic foul. And that was kind of a new addition. Now it's more of just enforcing the fact that when you put your hands on somebody, it's going to be a foul. And I think it's not only out on the perimeter, but it's also going to be some in the post.
Speaking of when you have the ball, does that benefit a team, the hand check thing, that wants to drive the basket?
Yes. It makes you
More so than a team
more
that
so
wants
than
to
shoots.
run the
That's right. It helps teams that drive the ball and attack the basket, create pressure for the defense.
Is KJ ready to be the guy that every defense is probably going to be designed around?
I think it's going to be a process. I think he's worked really hard to improve. I think he's improved a lot. He still has a ways to go. He's not a complete player yet, but I'm really proud of him because he's improved tremendously in 2 years. I think he's realizing kind of more and more each day that he's a leader of the team, and understands that he's got to be able to do some things to make our team successful, whether it's score or create for others. But I think it's like everything. I think it's a process until you're actually doing it consistently in games and kind of building that confidence. It's too hard to say that he's ready right this second.
Is Roper kind of in that same boat?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I don't know if he's quite there yet, but he's a guy that it's coming. He kind of has to. I don't know if he sees himself as that level of a guy yet. He's a guy who certainly thinks about scoring. I think he's a confident player. He's a guy that hopefully gets to that point. I don't know if he's quite there yet as a young sophomore, but it should happen hopefully at some point this season.
I know you were hoping